Ladies and gentlemen, just a few words. This is this topic, festivals in numbers, and numbers at all, are actually something we are underestimating sometimes as a cultural operators and organizations and managers. And I believe this is one of the most important thing in our work and our job, because actually the data is the proof of the value we are producing with our products. I mean, as a musician, my music is my business. So my business makes money for me, for food, for living. So it's a kind of a economic life, actually. So that's why I invited these wonderful ladies and... Абе, защо така връзва този микрофон? It's better now? That's why we initiated this panel with this wonderful scientist, actually, to discuss a little bit more about gathering data and its usage in a cultural perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending this panel today. My name is Elena, Lilova. I will be the moderator of this panel. It's a great pleasure for me to moderate such an important, I think, topic. And we're gathered here with two exclusive ladies. On one side, this is Beatriz Garcia, who is really experienced. She has more than 25 years of experience directing major research and evaluation programs on the impact of major events and festivals across Europe, the world. And on the other hand, we have Dr. Garcia and Dr. Diana Andreeva Popyordanova, who is the director of the Observatory for Cultural Economics and also a university lecturer. And so it will be really interesting to see their point of view and hear for your exclusive experience on the topic of measuring festivals. Before we go to the presentations, I would briefly like to share with you how the session will go. Each of you will have 50 minutes to expose your ideas, your theses, and then we'll have about 5 minutes to share thoughts on what we've just heard. And at the end of our panel, we'll leave 20 minutes for each of you, for the audience, to share your thoughts, comments, questions, of course. So we'll have a brief discussion. My request is for you to be really short and as clear as possible in your questions, so we have time to hear as much point of view as possible within our time. So this will be the basic rules of our discussion. Before we begin, I would like to maybe say a couple of words, but say my point of view, stress the point of this event. And I think, as Oscar Wilde would say, the importance of being earnest, but it's the importance of being measured, maybe we would say. And yeah, actually, what is the challenge here? Culture, we know, is a phenomenon that's not isolated from other spheres. On the contrary, cultural life brings a number of social and economic benefits that can be objectively and subjectively measured. This is where the challenges come, because cultural content and value are, let's say, harder to measure, for example, than just counting the numbers of tickets sold for an event. We have a much more complex environment that we have to capture and measure. But this is really important because when you're able to structure this, maybe at the first glance, unstructured environment, when you structure it, then you can manage it. Then you can know how to invest, where to direct your efforts. You can know what policies you can bring forward. But on the other hand, as we actually just talked with Beatriz, numbers are not just numbers. We need to know how to interpret them in a way to be effective. So this is what we're gonna hear from you, and I would I would waste no more time because I'm sure you have really important things to say to us. Okay, thank you, and Beatriz, it's you.
Thank you, and I think we have a presentation. Right, so it's always tricky. This is the hour, no, after lunch, and we're going to be bombarding you with numbers. Just perfect for digestion. Let's see how we do. I wear many hats, and those of you that were here yesterday will hear. So I'm associated with a few universities, and especially for the last 24 years, in charge of major programs of research and directing research institutes that have specialized on how you capture the impact of major interventions and the impact of cultural policies on cities. And I have also different hats as an advisor and member within committees in the International Olympic Committee, with the European Commission, and so on. So the kind of work that I have done, and I mentioned that yesterday, has focused very much on two types of events that are of a one-off nature. The Olympic Games on the one hand, and especially the Olympic art festivals that surround that intervention, and the European Capital of Culture program that will be 40 years now in 2025. But also festivals of other kinds, including the Edinburgh Festival and so on. Now, the point that we want to discuss here is this number game, no? And how to get alongside that. I have mountains of numbers I could share with you, and numbers that have been generated over a few decades. So, for instance, these ones are all from 2013. These are the numbers associated with the cultural program of the London 2012 Olympic Games, the Cultural Olympiad. It took place over 4 years across the UK. And in a place that is as advanced as the UK and in a world city like London, it still managed to make some innovations and some differences, no? But well, here we are. How many tourists? Where did they come from? All kinds of interesting numbers. But what do they actually mean? What is a big number or a small number? I think this is really, really important to consider, especially if you are at a place where you have to start setting up your methodologies or your strategies for data capture. The countries, and especially in the UK, we have been doing this at length, especially since the 1980s and 90s. The notion of the economic impact of culture and the arts was very much an argument that was won and articulated very clearly since the late 80s. And we have a lot of information. The problem is what is really relevant and whether we are getting the full story. And what I want to argue with you is that you really need to understand how to use and interpret the numbers that you gather and how you read the numbers that others share with you. That's to your advantage. Because at times 10 million might be a really small number and 10 people might be huge. It just depends on what it is, of how transformative the particular experiences that you are accounting for might be. So what I wanted to share to open up the conversation is the importance of combining your capacity to gather statistics with the frameworks that will help you narrate and explain the value of those different numbers. So I had been doing a lot of work. Most of my expertise and my roles with universities was to set up frameworks for research and to argue the case for major events and festivals to capture data through different angles, what was called the kind of holistic model for event evaluation. So this was, for instance, the model that was tested extensively in Liverpool. It was the Impacts 08 program. There is a lot that has been published. And this was a program that took place between 2005 and 2010 that changed a lot of the scene across Europe. And it became a bit of the reference model for the way European capitals of culture are assessed today. And the big point in there was to say, yes, we need economic data, but we need to make sure we complement that with an assessment around what we could define as cultural vibrancy. So numbers in terms of, how entrepreneurs, how cultural organizations might be growing or not within your city, the different networks that they are part of, obviously with data that has to do with access and participation, data around perceptions. We did a lot of work around media impact, how many articles get published about you, and what kind of headlines dominate, whether they're of a positive or negative nature. But also importantly, data that has to do with process. So when you capture numbers and try to explain what is the impact of the outcome of your intervention, you should also understand how that has happened. Your challenges in terms of your objectives, your strategies, your teams, how things have changed, because that will help you justify why at times you might not have gone as far as you wanted, but it's because something very distinctive happened. For instance, any festival that was planning things at the time of COVID-19, the results had to be taken into consideration. No? There were major challenges that explained, how far you could have gone with anything you delivered in 2020 or 2021. And then obviously broader methodologies to capture physical impacts and sustainability. And alongside that is that any of the numbers of the data that you might generate to help you explain your economic, your cultural, your image impacts, how they relate to your ways of operating. No? So there is a lot of discussion about that, around frameworks, and about helping you organize your information, and even most importantly, helping you identify the key questions that you want to get an answer to. So one of the areas that I have been advocating, and there are lots of toolkits, before we had the session about what you have with the Europe network and the toolkits you might have to how you run your festivals, there are also lots of toolkits to help you develop your evaluation practice and your approach to data gathering. And one of them is this notion around theories of change or wheel of change, and has to do with this. First, so before you start gathering any data or any numbers, be very clear about your ambition. What is the change you aspire to achieve through your festival, through your event? What are your resources? The money, the people, the skills, the talent, the spaces available to you. Then what activity are you going to deliver? And then what you can produce. What are the outputs? What are the actual outcomes, the difference you create, and then the impact. Only then you can understand the value of the number. And if ultimately, depending on what you did, what you are changing is one life or two lives, that's not a bad thing. In some cases, the impact might be not a big number, but quite deep and transformative. In other cases, you might have an impact that ends up with a huge number, but in a more shallow way. And that also is okay. But you need to explain it within the context of your specific ambitions. So how you make sense then of the data, how you interpret that, well, I will not get you lost into this, but the other huge challenge for the cultural sector and the other big area of debate is glossaries, the language we use to refer to things. We heard before, when we are talking about the numbers of visitors, be very clear what is a visitor or what is a visit. No? At times the number might be one person that is very active, that is doing 10 or 20 things, but it's just one person. So be very clear when you're presenting those numbers around that. What do you mean by event or by activity or by project? All of these things need to be defined. Otherwise, you might end up with numbers that are not believable. And I can tell you, within funding bodies and in policy environments, people are really ready to question you and to say, we don't believe you, you are exaggerating. So it's in your interest to try to be as precise as you can be. Because often within the culture and the art sector, we are accused of inflating things. And we need to challenge that and say, no, actually, we know what we're talking about. And you have to believe us. We can be really scientific and rigorous in our approaches. So again, there is a lot of work on common indicators, how you define, no? So what areas you capture, and especially any of you that is thinking maybe for the first time to do an evaluation or is having to rethink how you use your limited resources for evaluation, try to understand what others are doing. What are the most common indicators? What things you might be able to compare your data with? Because that's the other key. Whatever you collect, it will only make sense when you see it within a broader framework in terms of what else is happening in Bulgaria or in the rest of Europe or within your field, or the festivals of a similar size. So, just rounding things up, how then you present data? And numbers also matters. Things have evolved a lot. We have amazing tools nowadays. So in terms of visualizations, it's incredible, and there are a lot of free software out there. Again, it can get very dazzling and a bit confusing. I always recommend how you use and combine the figures and the numbers with some of the stories, no? The qualitative materials. So for instance here, and I'm sorry because you have the shadow there at the top, this is examples of how we presented data and numbers in terms of participation impacts. No? So how a particular intervention, in this case, the European Capital of Culture program in Liverpool, how it transformed the approaches to engagement within the city, in terms of how many of the residents in the city at large were involved within that event at some point in the year, the number of volunteers is always an interesting also indicator, the visits to events, but also important to combine that with the qualitative factors. In terms of economic data, normally the one type of a statistic that gets, I don't know if it's easier to capture, but it's in terms of visitors, no? The tourism impacts. So who comes from where, whether it's your city, your region, or from elsewhere. But really, really interesting to think more broadly about what that means in terms of spending. So again, and I'm sure maybe we will hear a bit more, how you get your methodologies to be able to argue what is it that generates new money that would not have happened without your event. I think it's much harder to be able to prove, for instance, generating jobs, creating new jobs. Normally these numbers are not very impressive in terms of the figure. And I always say, explain them qualitatively in terms of, the quality of the jobs, how you might be changing the capacity, have capacity building, skills. So at times an event might just generate 10 new jobs, but really highly specialized, and people that develop careers that are incredible and might go beyond your festival sector and just to become politicians or become really influential journalists. So again, how you combine the number with the story behind the number, I think is key. In terms of, so obviously, in terms of numbers and statistics for visitors, this is an area that often you can get these charts where things look like growth. In terms of cultural vibrancy, these are the types of numbers that we have been playing with. Things like the capacity for growth into a creative industry. And again, here is an 8% number. That was really impressive in Liverpool. In other places, it might be just like 1%. In others, you might be able to get 15 or 20%, but it depends on your point of departure. So again, these are just some examples. And you are getting now into the other new era of what is happening right now with the possibilities for open data and for very, very, very sophisticated live and interactive platforms. This is, for instance, a city, Matera in Italy, also had a European Capital of Culture, and what they decided was to share automatically all the data that they were gathering in their organization, associated with the number of activities or the types of art forms, etc., that they were playing with. And I don't know what is happening here. So again, this looked very nice, and it was all very aesthetic, but I don't know if, I don't think I have touched anything, so I think it must have happened on your end, yes. I will always advise caution, because from a scientific perspective, when we look at it, well, but what does this tell us? So at times, what you have is something very beautiful that might generate at least a question, and I will end now, but it might not be so straightforward in terms of interpretation or meaning. So let me end up with the kind of challenges or the kinds of questions that are worth keeping in mind when we are dealing with numbers and data. On the one hand, what counts as data? Numbers are really important, but stories are data too. So give credit as well to the stories, to the context. Let's get better at doing comparisons with the qualitative aspects. But don't present the stories alone. You really need your numbers numbers, what they do is that they are much easier to provide the comparators and the more, especially across nations and across time, so they are much easier to visualize. Language, place, and time. The contextual variations are really essential to ensure that your data is meaningful. And very important, the long-term view. Some of the numbers that you might collect at one point might not sound very impressive. They might be more meaningful 5 or 10 years later. So I always recommend, if you can repeat the studies and the models over time, that's where you will end up gathering a sense of something that can be really revealing. And there are great opportunities out there for all of us. I think any of you that wants to embark on the evaluation journey, I tell you, the tools there are great. We are becoming better and better as communicators. It can be a really empowering environment. Don't see it as just an obligation. It really can help you tell your story and be so much more convincing if you have your data and your numbers at hand. So don't resist it. You can go for it, and there are brilliant people that can help you make the case. The evaluation is as well about learning. It's not just about proving, it's not just about the results, but it's also about what you are learning about your own practice. Sometimes when you see those numbers and data, you might discover things that you had not thought about when you were originally envisaging your festivals. We have more than 30, in some cases 40 years of background and experiences. A lot of it is published online, and there is a lot of knowledge exchange opportunities, so make the most of that. So again, some examples, lots of publications, and I look forward to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Beatriz. So now we have 5 minutes to maybe discuss through ourselves. From what I can extract, because you have so much experience in all of this, we don't have one, let's say, universal approach to study our effects, to measure events. One would rather have to focus on their goals, on the scale of the event, to properly choose your methodologies, your frames, right?
Yes. Again, there is not a formula that fits all. I mean, with every festival, there is that moment of discussion, no? When I was setting the whole theory and wheel of change, and in this previous session we also had that, no? Depending, how you use your resources. Always are, what is your core priority, no? What is your ambition? Why are you doing your festival for? And once you start setting up those priorities, that will help you define the model that is more relevant to you.
And how does that reflect further actions in your experience? Measuring all these festivals, giving the numbers, interpreting them. What further actions actually in your experience do these bring? Because it's not only, I think, putting the numbers on the table. It is what they produce after that,
Yes.
what follows after that.
Well, cities can be completely changed through that. So again, a great example, the place of Liverpool. Liverpool is a city in the UK that maybe internationally is well known because of the Beatles, because of football, but it has very negative associations within the UK context. This was seen as the place that never knows what to deliver. It's crime. It's just seen people with health problems. It was really completely isolated. So when they secured the European Capital of Culture title, the local authority thought that it was a priority to do the evaluation study. They wanted to have a really, really ambitious program of research because they wanted to be able to demonstrate that they could make a difference and that this was not just PR. So the evidence base and working with universities, and they had not just consultants, they work with scientists to just have a really thorough interrogation into the process. So this 5-year program started, the Impacts of Aid Research Program, and we were able then to gather all kinds of information around the challenges and then the outcomes. And the numbers that were gathered helped the city make decisions going forward. So in terms of their cultural strategy, to become far more, it's not just efficient, it's self-aware. And you have now a city that obviously hosted the Eurovision title, has had Taylor Swift just recently going there, a place that was seen as a no-go, a place that was seen as losing the World Heritage site, being not reliable. Yes.
It's a yes go now.
Yes.
But from what you're saying, it means that it's very important to have the political will to use those numbers and work with all that data.
Yes. So
Okay.
obviously the local authority was behind it, but the media also interrogated it because people were, it's like almost they wanted Liverpool to fail, no? Because it was a joke. There were so many jokes, very cruel jokes about Liverpool. So there was this thing of, of course, this is a place, it's funny. It's funny people, but of course they are not going to be able to do it. So it was really important to be able to say, well, you want to interrogate what we are saying. This is not an invention. This is actually happening. So yeah, if you have a thorough approach to interrogating yourself, and also if you have the capacity to admit what goes wrong, because that's it. If proper evaluation and a commitment to deal with the data and the numbers should also be being brave enough to recognize what doesn't work so well. Because then what works well is more credible. So don't be scared of hiding, or don't hide the things that maybe are not as amazing as you were hoping for, but then maybe have an explanation, in terms of governance or the challenges that explain why some things didn't allow you to go as far as you could.
Okay, thank you, Beatriz. And maybe now we can move on to Diana and see and hear what you have to tell us.
Thank you. I would like to ask you for the presentation. Yeah, Beatriz told about the local will, the local authorities' will. My presentation is about the European Commission will to restructure the models of what we're doing with the data, basically. It's not just the economical impact, for instance, of festivals and culture and creative sectors and industries, but what methodology we can use within the framework of cultural economics. And my presentation is about the project called Cicerone in Latin, or Cicerone. It's about the culture and industries and cultural economy within the European Union countries. Sorry, I forgot the presenter. And in this project, we are 8 universities across the continent, and key European affairs organization, I think most of you know KIA. They're doing a research about the economical impact, working within the music analysis and researches as well, and our organization, Observatory of Cultural Economics. So our model and new methodology using the pure economical theory for the first time in cultural and creative sector was scientific based, as Beatriz said in Liverpool, for instance. We are using the model of global production network, which is which divides festivals or culture and creative sector sectors and industries in 5 phases. Because what the European Commission discovered is that we're observing cultural industries or creative sectors somehow above. And we wanted to see the global production network and how the value is captured through the different phases using data, precisely from Eurostat, UNESCO Statistical Institute, UNCTAD, the whole resources that we have basically from this data gathering, using the data within the 5 phases: creation, production, distribution, exhibition, and archiving or exchange, the 4th phases. We used in Bulgaria the case study of Varna Summer International Theatre Festival, one of the oldest, and not located in Sofia, in the 3rd biggest city in Sofia, in Bulgaria, sorry. So we try to see how the value is captured, as I said, and what is local impact, what is regional impact, national, intra-European Union impact, and global impact. So we divided the activities and the actors basically in these 5 phases using this data gathered in different sources to use also a phenomenon of embeddedness and within the global production network, societal embeddedness, territorial embeddedness, and network embeddedness, going beyond the pure economical impact of culture and creative sector. Because we did this for 14 years already in Bulgaria, and it's okay. Politicians like economical data just to prove that they're completely right with the public funding allocated in different festivals, different cultural activities, but going beyond is something which is totally different approach than pure economic context of using this data, especially the territorial embeddedness, talking about festivals, because we would like to see what is the local context, the locations that we're using, and the development. If it's sustainable, it will be perfect, of course, when we are talking about festivals. What is the impact for local clusters and ecosystems built within these 5 phases that we discovered, and using this global production network approach. And network embeddedness, of course, the linkages between different actors from local to global level. We are using also within the phases the tasks that the different actors within the global production network doing festivals and running of festivals have and how they're overlapping somehow within the different phases. And we're using also this is the spatial footprint of the production network, using the 5 phases of global production network, because through the data we would like to see the concentrated power, who is capturing the value along these phases, and where is the dispersed power. So who is who has the leading role within the festival. And in the case of Varna Festival, and in the case study that we have from our colleagues from the different countries that we participated in the project, is not the festival organizer itself. So it's interesting approach to see who is capturing the value. And what we can see that is you have local, regional, national, European and global level. The creation usually within the festivals, in our case study, is a concentrated power, and it's like national, and through the national and European level, the exchange is from local to global. The archiving phase is from national to global, the distribution is from national to global, and the production is almost local to regional to European level. And the European Commission was interested in this project in one more reason. When we have a public money, what is the local impact? Because in cultural economics, the most important argument for public money is external positive effects for the society. How we are dealing with the public money and who is capturing the value within these levels. Usually in the audiovisual industry, for instance, is not the local regional level. Is national, European, global. Within the festivals, we can prove, at least in two phases, the local and the regional effects for the society and for these important external positive effects for the society. And this is a complicated scheme. We tried to put the actors and the tasks through the different 5 phases and how the ecosystem of the festivals is working, especially in the city out of Sofia, where we have a totally different context. Because in our research of what we're doing about the economical impact, 80% of the cultural activities and the especially economical impact of cultural activities are based in and concentrated in Sofia. So we can conclude that we have, from this case study that we did for Varna International Theatre Film International Festival, we have production, distribution, and a little part of exchange on the local regional level. On the national level, we have the whole phases. Intra-European Union level, we have the whole phases, also the network level, without the production, which is national, on national base. And on the global phase, we have distribution, exchange, and archiving. So, as I said, the European Commission was interested to see the local context. Also, what is the intra-European Union phases and the arguments for the new policies based on the global production network and new financial model based on each phases of the global production network. So this is a completely new methodology that we did, and we are expecting from the next year these new policies based on global production network. So my proposal to Peter is to have not only the Bulgarian case studies about the Varna Theatre Festival, but to have A2Jazz also doing this new approach of global production network, because it will be interesting in the case study of festival in Sofia, the capital. So here is the web page of our publication, and you can see and read the whole 160 pages of research that we recently did with our colleagues from the University of Amsterdam. This was our part within the project about the festivals and performing arts. There in one report. And one more slide, which is totally different than the global production network, because we would like, for instance, in our organization to combine different data, not only economical impact and economic data and financial arguments, but also sociological survey that we did with the Ideas Factory, Goethe Institute, and Alpha Research Sociological Agency in April. And I'm returning to the point that we are observing through the public money and allocation of public money the audience development in Bulgaria, especially in certain groups. So what we observed for 2 years already is just the first row, not even once per year, attended the festivals, which is for me the most important data that we have. Until now it's 46% in 2022 and 54% and almost and a half in 2023. So for me it's lack of policies on a national level, lack of policies on the level of Sofia, for instance, because we are using different methodologies on European level, but I think on the local context we still need to think about what to do with the data and how to build the audience, for instance, and to measure the external positive effects for the society and especially for the young audience, which is the dramatic problem, for instance, in Bulgaria, in Sofia. Within this research, I just put one slide, but within this research, our youngsters are up 50% not attendee to some cultural activities, which is dramatic problem for me, and also why we're using data and how to use the data that we are gathering for new policies, I could say, and for lack of policies. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, I will be glad to answer.
Thank you, Diana. Okay. Maybe Beatriz would
I
share.
have a comment,
Yeah.
just because of that last slide. So it's very interesting for 2023 that there is this kind of higher percentage of those that say that they have not attended even once a festival, but those that have done more than 12 festivals, there is also a growth. It's interesting. So there was from 0.1 to 0.4%. So whether things are becoming more dramatic in terms of those that are getting more and more involved, and those that maybe because of online activities and so on are going more disengaged, no? So an interesting one in terms of how you understand those numbers.
In certain groups, we have different results. As I said, we have problems with the youngest from the audience of festivals, for instance, because this is the research survey about the festivals. And also we have a group which is growing, and this is the seniors, 65 plus. This is one of the problems that we are not involving enough this audience and this group, which is not problematic only for Bulgaria, but for the whole European Union countries, 65 plus. And the percentage in this group is growing. That's why we are discovering these results. And we have two groups, which is, the first one is from 30 to 45, and from 45 to 55, the people with the biggest amount of money and domestic budget, they're usually participating more and more. But as I said, the youngsters and the seniors, they're not participating, and especially 65 plus. As I said, this is the result of this survey. And also the problem that we discovered with the research of Alpha Research Agency is the free time when you have a huge domestic budget. You don't have a free time, and this is also a tendency in European Union countries that we are observing from COVID until now. So you have to work a lot and you don't have enough free time. Yeah.
If I could add up to what you just said, it is not a phenomenon for non-participation of youngsters in cultural events. In particular, we were talking about festivals. It is a broader phenomenon. We would say that the youngest people are the least involved in every part of social, political, every kind of life. And this raises the questions on how to include them. Why is that? What to do to bring them back? Okay, some explanations would lead from being more individualistic or being much more in online environment, so a little bit like isolated from the world and somehow self-sufficient, being in virtual, maybe communities, not being physically active outside with people. But there are surely there is a need for more deeper research, I think, on investigating the basics. How does it happen? How come such a phenomenon? Yeah. Okay, we have the gentleman in the back. Maybe, yeah, we need a microphone for that.
No, they say no.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else would like to share something? Yes.
There is one.
We have a lady on the left.
Thank you for your presentation. I just had a question. You were mentioning that it's important to communicate about what doesn't work, but I was also wondering about the negative impacts, even in a prospective way. And to explain myself, I live in France, and we know now, for instance, that the Olympics are going to have a strong impact on the music industry. On festivals, even like big festivals like Avignon are being really impacted by that. Some music venues that had to close during 2 months in Paris and that are losing a lot of money because the bar cannot function. How do you deal with that actually? And especially when you get, I would say, studies from local authorities that obviously want to advocate for their events.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, and it's where we go back to the time frames. So what is happening in France is that obviously the Olympic Games are happening in Paris this August, and also we are at times of tension, no, in terms of wars and concerns. So the security concern is even more heightened than normally with the games. So the kind of security operation that is required for Paris is so complex that they have had to displace the people that would operate within festivals in other parts of France. So basically, during August, other major event activities in Avignon, in other parts, cannot really happen because you need the police and the security officers all to concentrate around Paris. So really important then to assess, who gains, who loses out of this. So obviously, in parallel to that, you have the Cultural Olympiad. So there is this other program of activity that would not have happened to that extent without the Olympic Games, and we have to see. In fact, I'm involved in that, in trying to assess what have been the values of having a cultural Olympiad and who has benefited, and especially in the areas where other festivals are having to be cancelled or postponed, to see, okay, are there other types of activities that have been happening, added value and generated new interactions and also engaging different types of audiences in ways that are beneficial, and how that compares with what you are losing, and who is being affected and what kind of protections exist for those, and how damaging that is within a year or 2 or 3 years, compared with also all the other things that are going to be happening because of again, in the case of Paris and the Games, is the work with young people. So obviously the emphasis with the Olympic Games is the youth connection, and in this case, operating with the urban sports. So with all the break and climbing, other practices that also linked with other cultural environments. So it's really, really interesting how you compare the micro and the macro, So who is being affected and how far it goes, and whether it can get you to the point of bankruptcy in some cases, and what other things are happening anew that have also an advantage. I think it's really, really important to be able to recognize the contradictions and see whether you can do the data gathering at a level that goes beyond just any particular vested interest. So I do hope that there is not hiding from these immediate negative impacts that some groups will be feeling, but then to also make sure that you are combining that with a new activity. No? So which things are happening anew? And there are many organizations that will say that they have tried for the first time something, and also that they have new budgets just because of this way of working with the arts and sports world. But yes, it really is important not to hide the fact that, yes, a few festivals will not be happening this summer because of a mega event.
Okay. Thank you, Beatriz. Anybody else wanting to ask a question or make a comment? Can sure see everybody.
It was maybe it also was people think this whole issue around young people and their disengagement with certain cultural practices. I think, and it's where again it matters to always go beyond the numbers and try to dig further. I think it really is important for everyone in the cultural sector to understand how definition of what is culture and cultural engagement, how it keeps changing. No? So the effect of the digital environment, we cannot demonize it. It's developing other forms of community that are incredibly powerful too, and inspiring, and that really have deep meaning, you know? So what is this other way of participating in culture that is really alive? It's happening. So these other types of festivals that are maybe not happening in the public domain, are happening in a virtual space, but are also generating incredibly transformative new dialogues and conversations. So how do we capture that? No, and for the festival sector especially.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. In this changing environment, actually, constantly changing environment, let's call it. When people are more and more online, and when social networks are really taking importance, also reflect on the indicators I think we might follow as measuring impact. For example, from what you said about media publications, I think it's important to also follow social media engagement, like shares of events or comments of events. These are also indicators that might become some of the key KPIs to measure impact in a certain sphere of influence, let's say. And also, I would like to ask, because you both presented possible approaches to measure cultural events, to measure impact. Can we somehow outline some basic, not to be able to go without indicators that are common, or is that really hard to outline? What do you think about that?
What I missed to present is through these 5 years that we did the project, we had a working group with the Eurostat, with the UNESCO Institute of Cultural Statistics, mainly because of festivals. Because as far as you know, we have more than 80 NACE codes. These are cultural activities within the statistical framework of Eurostat and UNESCO Statistical Institute. And from Eurostat, even the general director is Bulgarian, and she started the economical impact of CCIs in Bulgaria together with us, with our organization. She said, no way. Because to add certain indicators for festivals, it's too expensive, too difficult, and it's a huge effort for Eurostat and for the National Statistical Institutes to organize certain indicators for festivals. Because we are in the panel Festivals and the Numbers, And this is the biggest pain, I could say, across Europe. How to compare festivals, how to measure the economical impact, the social effects, and so on and so on.
Yes.
Employment as well within the festivals and local activities. And what we did with this project of Global Production Network is the model that we know from the Anglo-Saxon countries is the satellite account. Some of these elements of the satellite account, the Alpha Research Agency and A2 Jazz Festival did through the sociological research, but this is just the first level. So we have to go beyond this sociological research and survey and to build the economic model. Yeah.
But I think, I mean, that very ugly slide that I had with what I call the glossaries, that is key. It's that common language. We need to get some basics, that is those kind of key indicators, that we use them in the same way. Because we keep comparing apples and pears. We have this number, but actually it's not the same. What has been gathered is not the same. So something really basic, activity or project or event. What do you mean? What is the minimum unit that defines what you do? So what is an activity? I think that is the more basic level of indicator in order for you to say what you do. And an activity, I mean, I keep trying to argue that has to do with the concert, the workshop you do with your kids, you know, the child workshop, a conference or a discussion. How you define that as a minimum unit that is associated to what your festival is about. And then how you compare that with how you define an event or a program or a project, no, that is made out of these tiny bits that are activities, and then you could compare. And obviously, how you compare activities to your budgets, no, and then to the people, no. So what are the attendances? That other one, very basic. What is a spectator or a participant? You know, because level of engagement, no, how active they are, or whether they are just passive recipients or volunteers.
So it's all about precise definitions
That's it.
of
I think that's the
what to
key.
measure. Yes, that's the key.
Yes, this is the first level of Eurostat indicators that we are measuring the CCIs across European Union. Certain definitions that are very strict. In France or in Bulgaria, we have the same definition within the NICE codes. And what we don't have about festivals. Certain definitions, what is international, national, regional, local, super local, and etc. festivals.
I want to ask, is there publicly statistics and data that we can use so to make our own charts? And yeah, that's my my question. That is, thank you.
In the national context or European level?
International, European, whatever, like on the level of festivals. Doesn't matter. International, Bulgarian festivals, European festivals, festivals, so on.
That's what I explained before a few minutes, that we don't have a certain NICE codes about festivals. We have some activities, like in music industry, NICE codes that are provided by Eurostat. We have other activities. And most of the festivals are in these other activities, for instance. As well as in the audiovisual...
My question was Eurostat, how is spelled? Like, so I can find it in...
It's Eurostat. And it's the level of European Union and some countries out of the European Union and the UNESCO Institute of Cultural Statistics. And UNCTAD, this is the other, yes, UN organization, the economic organization of UN.
Yes, and it's very useful in terms of that common ground.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
But yes, but you will find it, and it's that. But
So,
it's, yeah, the
And in some
toolkits.
countries, if you have to make international or European comparisons, some countries they have data that it gathering from the associations or trade associations, of course. So you can use for festivals especially. We don't have certain data except this sociological surveys that we have national representative about the attendance of the festivals.
And
So-
actually,
But we are all using Eurostat.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's Euro S data.
Eurostat.
Eurostat. Okay.
well, maybe we can show you that after the discussion, because now we're really running out of time, and I think there was a lady who wanted to make a comment or ask a question, and this I propose would be the last one because it's 2:50 already, and we're running a little bit late. Yeah.
I guess I have to stand, which is,
It's okay.
wow, okay. So, hello.
Hello.
I am kind of like a representation of the Gen Z generation. I'm just 18 years old. And I just wanted to make a point, or just share my opinion. I don't think I agree that young people are not socially engaged or they don't care about festivals. They don't go to festivals. I mean, my friends, we traveled from Plovdiv, especially to go to A2 Jazz. Thank you so much, Peter. This is an amazing festival. I live in Finland, and when I'm in Bulgaria, I do everything I can to visit every single festival. I'm a music fan. So I just wanted to say that I think journalists or just in general TV broadcasts, they don't use their voices, and young people don't get educated about basically music or festival culture. And I think it's really easy for us young people to kind of like get interested through simply just humor and social media. It's not difficult at all. I just think that the older generation doesn't really care about that much. I mean, maybe in Bulgaria, maybe I don't know about other countries, but I just think that if we were more educated about festival culture and music culture, I guess more young people would be here in this room, because this is this music talk has been so interesting. It's my second day, and I don't understand how this is for free. By the way, I mean I've learned so much from you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. Oh my God, thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm a bit. I think it's really unfortunate that we are not educated about festival culture, and we should be. And please, you journalists, use your voices. I think it's really important. I think that these people who listen to, I don't want to put any labels on anything, but it's quite difficult in this situation not to. The people who listen to, only to pop folk music, they are in this little bubble, but I don't think they're just educated enough. They can get out of the bubble, you know. Yeah. So how do you think, guys, we can get out of the bubble? I mean, I don't know if you guys have an answer to this question because it's really broad, but I'm just, I don't know. I just really want to, yeah. Thank you.
I mean,
Just a minute or
yes.
two, thank you so much for your opinion
Thank you.
and question.
And what always matters, because with any results or data that is shared, you always have to interrogate, how has this data been gathered? Because also, when there is a statistic that suggests that maybe young people are starting to disengage with that, it's like, what questions were they asked, and who, where is the sample coming from? I mean, it really matters to always interrogate how has the research been done to really understand then what is the significance of what is being found. How is the notion of festival? What kinds of festivals maybe are being assessed? Because maybe there are other types of activities that really young people are equally involved in. And I mean, in terms of parallel types of data that need to be gathered, and maybe we are not collecting in the same way. I feel now the growth in terms of activism. No? Young people are becoming more and more organized, also to take on the street, to take a stance. No, what we were hearing earlier, there has been a growth of wanting to be heard and protest, and doing it in a festive manner. That maybe doesn't count as a festival, but maybe should. You know, the approaches to activism that also we are seeing across Europe and in other parts. So is that not a way of demonstrating engagement? But who is collecting that data?
And then maybe it's a matter of approach to young people, how you reach them and how you motivate them to participate. Okay, I really thank you all for being here. We're a little bit late, so I think we will have to wrap up this. I hope useful for everybody, presentations and discussion. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And thank you, Peter, and all the 8 jazz organizers for this opportunity. Have a good day, everybody.